Now, Bob, you've been with your brother Bill on every single one of your 9 encounters. How would you describe the creature?
Well, I describe the creature as a huge telephone pole floating through the water. The upper neck, if you saw it floating, if it didn't move, it would look like just a regular big old black telephone pole. And the only problem is it undulates vertically, so you'll see waving in the motion of the animal itself. The midsection is just huge. It widens out to, I don't know, maybe this big. It's hard for me to really say how big the midsection is. And then the tail section thins out again into a, maybe not quite as long as the upper neck, but a long telephone type of final section in the rear. We never did get to see the tail ourselves.
Now, you got a pretty close look at it on one occasion. What's the colours like?
Okay, the upper neck portion is definitely all black. When it comes into the midsection, the upper part of the midsection is the similar black, but as you go around the side, there's a gradual change in color. It'll change from an upper portion black to like a mossy green, to a grassy green, and then finally to a yellow green where it hits the underbelly. The underbelly itself is a leathery underbelly. It had definite segmented portions to it that were a foot and a half apart, but I could see this distinct line. There must have been 10 or 12 of them in the underbelly, and the underbelly was like a light white, just a tint of yellow in it. I very barely could see it, but just enough yellow where you could notice that there was yellow in it, but it was soft.
So what did the face look like, and how vivid were the colours?
Well, the first time I saw the face really good, it was looking at me straight on, and I could see these two huge nostrils. They had to be the size of a man's fist, and it reminded me of looking down the barrel of a double-barreled shotgun. And then I noticed that the top of the head was flat, and there were these eyebrow ridges over the eyes. The eyes were set behind it, and they were looking straight at me. And I could tell they weren't like fish's eyes, where fish's eyes are on the side. They were able to look straight at me, and I could see these huge jaws, and the jowls were they were standing out. They were amazing. And the coloring of the head itself was dark black, and the whole upper neck was black. But when it got into the midsection, then I noticed that on top it was black, but as it went around the sides, the color gradually changed from a dark black to like a mossy green, then a grassy green, and then a yellow green. And I kind of did this drawing here to kind of give you an idea of, it's not exactly the way it was, but it was like dark black here, and then as it changed, as it went along towards the bottom of the animal, until on the bottom was this beautiful yellow-green color. And with this, I wanted to give an idea of what the fin looked like. This was attached along the body here. This is all attached to the length of the body. And this would open and close, just like a fan would open and close. And it had these pointed, striated edges to it with the ribbing going into the central point. And as it turned over, I got an excellent view of this. That's why this is close to what it looked like. Not exactly right, but it's a pretty good approximation. But the coloring in the midsection itself was these gorgeous colors of green, like grassy green and mossy green, and they just gradually changed colors as it went down to the side of the body.
I mean, those are very vivid colours. I mean, you normally associate vivid colours like that with tropical fish, not reptiles.
Well, it was shocking to me too, because after seeing all this black, when the first coloring came out, I was like, wow, there's this green to it, and that was in the area where the scales were starting to be noticeable, because the scales in the midsection were very large. They varied in size from about the size of a dime to the size of a silver dollar, and they were right next to each other. And as I was looking at the coloring, I noticed these scales also very quickly. I didn't have that long of a chance to see it because it turned over, but the coloring was incredible. I mean, that was one of the things that amazed me the most, because I was expecting just to see black, and then all of a sudden this beautiful green comes shining out.
Did it surface regularly for air?
Well, not really. It only comes up occasionally. But I think what it can do is that it has this flat snout in the front. It's almost like a 90 degrees. And those big, huge nostrils are right at the tip of it. And in some of our photographs, we noticed it tilted slightly upward. And I think this thing can be under the water and just tilt its head up just enough to get those nostrils above the water, take a deep breath, go back down under. And if you're looking at it, you would think it was a sea lion. You wouldn't even have the foggiest idea of that this was a huge monster. You would just think it was a normal sea lion or something just happened to be popping up in front of the water.
So given that it breathes air and the way you describe it with scales and fins, it sounds like a reptile.
Well, I personally think it's an unknown species. I don't think it's reptilian. I don't think it's mammalian. I think it has a combination of all of these different traits of these different types of animals. And that's why, if I was going to say anything, I would say it was more reptilian, because it did look snake-like. But my own personal feeling is this is a totally unknown classification of animals. I like to think that perhaps this is where the story of the dragon comes from, as from this ancient animal that apparently it was considered a myth, but seeing is believing, and I know I saw what I saw, and if I was going to describe it as anything, I would describe it as a water dragon of some sort. To me, if you remember your little drawings when you were a kid of the dragons, the coloring was the exact same. The body, the underbelly was very similar. The neck was similar. The the reptilian facial look is very similar. I know it sounds crazy, but I think this is a dragon.